Welcome to the Jeremy Mullins podcast, where we take a deep dive into different educational topics to help you optimize your life. I am Jeremy, your host. I am here with my brother from another mother, my Ironman partner, companion,
Like,
dumb enough to do things with me.
I think that's probably the most accurate one. Yep.
Try to find you a title, buddy. Mr. Dennis, how are you?
I'm good, man. We are a matter of days out now, and like it's real now. It's right on our doorstep.
100%. It is real. For me, my fifth Ironman coming up this weekend, fifth Ironman attempt. Hopefully, it's the fifth one that I finish. But looking to have a good day, looking to have some fun.
And third one for me. Third full, and yeah, I echo that. I feel we'll get into this. Like I feel more ready for this one than I have for the previous two, and it should be a fun day, and I'm really, and people who don't do this don't understand this, but I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to a full day of craziness and a little bit of suffering and all that.
And listen, I wish more people had that mindset, right? So I want to kind of give a shout out to one of our sponsors and just put it out there to men and ladies, but especially to the men. If you're over 35 years old, like you're declining when it comes to testosterone levels, 100%. So I'm going to encourage everyone as we're moving into the fall season, moving into Christmas, that thing is, hey, invest in yourself. Take the time, make a investment into yourself, get your blood work done, even if that's all you do. If financially maybe you can't afford, I like to call it, concierge medicine is kind of my vision of it. If you can't afford it, not the right time to do it, cool, I got it. But at least do the blood work to see where you're at, right? Because I would argue, Dennis, that like most people should feel this way. Like
Mm.
most people should be excited about life and wanting to go out and do physical things because it makes them better, in the sense of like us. And I'll say this as a disclaimer, like we are not pro athletes. Okay. So if this is your first time listening to the podcast and we say you're going to do an Ironman, I am not a pro athlete. I don't claim to be super fast at these things. I claim to be able to go finish them and have the mental fortitude, to go left foot, right foot, and finish the day. Okay. But what we are is, and two gentlemen that could argue at the peak of the career when it comes to finances and peak at especially peak for you at fatherhood, having I think one in college, one in high school, junior high and elementary
Two in high school, one in middle school. I'm done with elementary school finally.
this year. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're fathers, we're friends, coworkers, and that's training for endurance events makes me a better person overall. I have really come to realize that in my life, and I want to keep these training in because I can tell you, like from a mental standpoint, I'm always been in a really good place, in the years that I trained for something really hard.
I could not agree more. And I was talking to somebody and it really like the level of training, especially for events like this, like it really pushes you physically, mentally, emotionally, even, which sounds a little bit weird, but like it's really true. And I think it tests your limits. And I like being tested because I feel like exactly what you said, like it makes me a better person in all facets of my life especially when I'm in the training. As much as I am worn out on a Saturday after a long, workout during the peak of the training block, you feel good because the sense of accomplishment, the sense of being pushed to your limits and pushing through that, you can use that feeling and that fortitude and when things get hard at work or at home or whatever. So it really is something that benefits you in all facets of life, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think you learn, I learn something every single time. Like, this time I feel like I took my guard down when it comes to, getting in, like you're talking about that peak training. So, all transparency in the past, like most of the time I've been under trained for these events, like by all definition. If you spoke to the average person doing this event and you told them how much Jeremy had trained, they would probably look at you and be like, what is he even doing here? Right? Like, but this time my training volume I feel like is really good. but maybe I let my guard down a little bit, on those like last peak weeks. Cause that's traditionally what I've done well about, like knowing that, okay, I need to go ride 100 miles, on my bike, right? I need to go run at least 13 unbroken, to be able to finish, walk, run, marathon. There were certain things that I'd always just kind of work up to at that last moment
Yep.
that I knew how to hit. So I almost took that as granted this time around, like, okay, it'll happen, right? Because I am training good. I'm riding 3 days a week. I'm running a couple days a week. Started getting in the pool 2 days a week. Like things were actually going well. And then, the last few weeks of those traditional peak weeks, it's just once again life, right? And I feel like, I did well under the circumstances. I still was able to get a 20-mile run in one of the weeks, along with additional workouts that day. But traveling those 2 weeks that should have been peak weeks really made it difficult for me, because I was on the road, basically leaving on Thursdays, coming home late on Sundays, and those being 12-hour drives, respectively, on those days. So I think that kind of got me in my mind a little bit because I was really mentally tired last week. And then I missed out on that, long 100-mile ride. And it was kind of like it was messing with me.
Yeah.
But I've had a chance, to sit and look. And even like yesterday's ride, on paper, listen at me, on Strava, it's not paper. But, you look at it, it's like, well, it's only 36 miles. But, 60% of that ride was on double track or single track gravel and dirt, and then you start doing the math on that. A lot of times when you say mountain biking, if you mountain bike 50 miles, the same thing as mountain biking 100 miles, right?
Mhm.
Just because of the difference in that. So, I think I'm in a great spot. I'm still got a couple swims I want to get in this week to make sure that, I feel good with what I'm wearing in the swim. Um, and I'm just going to move. That's the one thing I'm going to change a little bit this week, that I've done in the past with having to travel a little bit further, is make sure that I move every day. So I don't have
Mhm.
that little mental breakdown and that increasing anxiety of not doing anything leading up to the event.
Yeah, and so so I'll paint my own picture in terms of my training going leading into this. The Because my approach was a little bit different than the previous ones as well, from but just in a different perspective. In the previous two, I was self coached and just basically grinded out a lot of zone two work and didn't really have much structure to it, and other than stuff I found on the internet. But I my friend Ray Law coached me this time and wrote my programs, and there were plenty of days that I didn't like him very much because of what he was making me do,
Yeah.
but I've told him, like, privately, and I'll say it here, like, it just that is the noticeable difference, being pushed out of my comfort zone. Because the reality is, as human beings, like, and this, and we all are guilty of it in different facets. It's like, if you leave, you can rationalize yourself into anything. And so the previous go rounds, I would say, "Oh, I don't need to run longer than, 10 miles, 15 miles, whatever." And because I was sticking with what I was comfortable with. As much as that sounds a little bit strange, like, I would know that I could do that kind of mileage. Whereas this time, Ray would drop a 50-mile or 70-mile bike followed by a 14-mile run. Like, I would never have programmed that myself, because if I'm being really honest with myself, I wouldn't have pushed myself that hard. And he would drop a 20-mile run on my calendar. And so the stacking of all of those, one, my fitness is noticeably better in that respect, but two, like, just the mental fortitude of going, like, because I'd go into Saturday looking at those, and we'll get into this, I'm sure, in more detail, like, I'd be dreading it, but then I'd always feel great afterwards. And so I think that has given me a lot more sort of confidence going into the event. But I'm with you also. Like, I want to still, still want to move, because it's hard to not get anxiety in the last couple of weeks when you're not working as hard and doing as much volume, because you want to be in the right, as much as, the hay's in the barn physically, you want to be in the right mindset going into Saturday.
Yeah, and a couple things I would point out with that, especially for those that it's a bucket list. Okay. If you can run, and I mentioned this earlier, so kind of breaking it down, as Dennis was saying, like if you can run 10 miles after coming off a 60-mile bike ride, like that's probably all you need to do to be physically prepared to finish an Ironman. Right. And I think that's something, Dennis, as you mentioned, both of us this time around, got other individuals to kind of help us coach. and or sorry, to help us program. And for me, I think it's the accountability aspect, right? If I'm asking someone, with Coach Kevin, it's kind of a barter of a service, with him. So I don't necessarily have skin in the game when it comes to financially, but like out of respect, I'm not gonna have someone spend time
Right.
program and then go do it or not go do it, right? And I'm super excited to continue doing that because I'm going to focus in on some mountain biking and gravel riding. It's going to kind of be my goal moving past this event, into 2025 and 2026. Um, so that was me a little bit different. I didn't get a lot. I got more mileage in, so I ended up getting, 2, 3, trying to think of the marathons I end up running this month, and a 20 miler, right? So, and a lot of that was just time on the feet, doing a little bit of answering messages as I was running, run, walk. But it was really just getting out there. Had a PR on a half, marathon, in recent years in this training block, and had a good 70-mile mountain bike ride, which was, about 6, 7 hours in the saddle. So if I look back at it, feel really good with the volume of training and all that. I just didn't finish those last 2 weeks like I
Yeah.
would have liked to. But all in all, I feel good in the position that I'm at.
Yeah. No, I think that's I mean we should maybe double click a little bit more on some of the journey and kind of talk a little bit more about that because I think the skin in the game thing is important. I mean, I didn't really realize it until now, and it's like you feel having someone you're accountable to and really feeling that accountability. I think will drive the right behaviors. Because otherwise, like I said before, you can rationalize your way out of something, super easy. And so I think finding ways to sort of hold yourself accountable and relying on a buddy or a coach or, paying your money. And I mean, I pay Ray, but not a lot of money. And it would be really, but I still feel accountable to him. Like even if I was paying him $5, I'd still feel if he's taking the time, like you said, I think that makes a big difference. And if for folks who may struggle sometimes sort of getting themselves motivated, like that's a tool that you can use to kind of push yourself. So
What are a couple of things that you've learned about yourself this go around, right? And I'll start with this to kind of give you an idea of
yeah,
what I'm thinking with this question and answer. But I realize like I truly enjoy the dirt stuff. Like I like being in the woods. I like being on the mountain bike, the gravel bike, being away from the trails. And I know you ride on a really busy trail, So I think that was my biggest thing in this block of training, and even maybe to a detriment in that I didn't have the desire to get on the road and on the tri bike. So
yeah.
the tri bike I think I've rode 3 times, counting the half that we did. But I just really learned like it fills my cup to be in the woods doing some mountain biking, doing some trail riding. That's one big takeaway that I had, you know, this kind of block of training.
I think for me, one of the ones that I'd point to, and even though I've been doing this, endurance stuff for a little while now, like still feels weird to say, but like I enjoy running. Like I enjoy running. I'm not fast by any means. But I like, you know, once I'm done with Ironman, I will absolutely do everything I can to hold on to the fitness that I've built. And so, but I one of the workouts not that long ago was this 5 mile run, which had each mile was progressively faster. And so you'd start out at like Ironman pace, and it would go to marathon pace, it would go to half marathon, 10K, 5K.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Your paces are different for all those?
For me, they are, buddy.
Okay.
Um, and
Mine's mine's the same, buddy. You want to run 3 miles? Yep, I got you.
same speed. Got one
Man,
speed.
got one.
Motor was one speed for the Mullins motor. Goes one speed.
Listen, 11 miles an hour. That's what we got.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not 11 miles an hour. 11 minute
11
pace.
miles.
There
Yeah,
we
I
go.
was gonna say 11 miles or 11 miles an hour would be a different thing. But no, it's and so I mean, none of those five speeds are fast by many people's standards, but they are for me. And I remember getting done for that 5 mile run, and I'm like, I really enjoyed this. Like, I like how it feels. You're not crushed afterwards, but you worked hard. And so I can see myself having that be a regular part of my fitness rotation. going forward. So, I think that was something that I really can kind of, because I think it's a very common thing for people out there to say like, oh, I hate running. I hate running. I'll be the first to say, like, I actually, in the right setting, like, I do enjoy it. Now, you know, the longer runs that are just grinds, that's not what I'm talking about. Something sort of medium, and it's also perspective changes too. Like for me, a long run is a half marathon, and like stuff longer than that, that's long. Whereas it's funny when you talk to people and I'll say like, "Oh, I only ran 6 miles this morning before work." And like some individuals you talk to, in fact, I'd argue probably most individuals that are out there are going to hear that and go like, "Why are you saying only in that sentence?" Like only and 6 miles don't go together because most people, unfortunately, because I think more people would obviously benefit, most people look at that and they're like, "That's daunting." Because people aren't out there moving their bodies as much as they should, and they're intimidated by running. And man, so anyway, that's the big thing that I learned. And then the other one sort of tangential to that I throw out there is like when I'm out there running, like you see people of all shapes and sizes out there, even, and I spend most of my time running in my neighborhood, but I just love seeing people out there, and you see a lot of the same people out there, and you wave to them, and there's just like a runner's code that if someone's out there running too, you just kind of give them a wave. And I really enjoy seeing people, even if they're running slow and whatever. I just love seeing them get after it. Like I find it inspiring to see people of all shapes and sizes and ages out there, just getting outside and moving. Because that, even if they're struggling or it's hard for them, they're doing more than 98% of the people that are in the neighborhood. And so I just really like seeing that.
And that kind of reminds me of like, I will say this: the running fitness helps all my fitness, right?
Yeah.
So, like when I go back get into the CrossFit, like I'll still be decent at that because my cardiovascular conditioning right now is really good, right? So my strength, I maintain strength very well. So just by adding that piece to it, like I'll still be a decent athlete in that setting. But it reminds me of why I want to keep running at least that hour, right? And like I said, okay, an hour running, I might be able to get 6 miles in a good day. Normally 5 at my pace, but that's nice and easy,
Yep.
pushing like I ran 4 the other day, pushing the stroller, right? Like I'm going to make that, like you said, a few days a week, that hour something continuous. Maybe throw
Yep.
some squats in every mile, push-ups in every mile, or whatever. Just, I mean, to get fitness in, but keep the running in. Because that was the other thing that you and I talked offline last week, I think, was like, man, I've got to where like, okay, if you want to say run, 10 miles or run for 2 hours, like, okay, I can go do it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
not be broken down. So that's something I want to continue doing, throughout the process. And like I said, I'll lean, into the mountain biking, the gravel biking and get back into the lifting. That's kind of post plan for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, let's talk a little nutrition for the week, right? Because if you're doing an event, you should be looking at your nutrition a week out, not necessarily like, what do I do the day before, right? The day before is important, but I would also argue that starting, a week out, right? So now we're Monday when we're filming this. Hopefully we drop this before the Ironman. And then Saturday's our race. Okay. So what is your game plan for the week? What's it going to look like? What are you going to change up from baseline, or what is it going to do?
Yeah, so I am certainly woefully less knowledgeable in this department than you, but I've learned what you just said is really true. It's not just the night before when we were kids. I remember, the night before a big football game, we'd all get together and have a big bowl of spaghetti because yeah, you're supposed to carb load the night before, and I'm sure that was helpful, but um even a day or 2 before that, because of just how the body, how long it takes to absorb and get the all the nutrients sort of where they need to go. Timeline's a lot longer. But in addition to that, for me, like a big thing that I worry a lot about or I think a lot about is like just making sure all of my digestion and all my systems are settled. So I'm a guy who loves really spicy food, like spicier the better, whether it's, Mexican or Indian or this or that, like, and that's probably not going to be a lot on the menu, because I just don't want all of the downside that goes along with it, especially leading up for the race. And And so I think going to keep it bland. I'm going to, try to eat earlier and kind of, get it to where I'm not eating right before you go to bed. Like just kind of really trying to keep it as clean as possible. You know, make sure I'm having the right amount of carbs, not overloading in any one department, and just be pretty regimented. And then probably no booze unless you and I have one beer, like kind of like we did the night before Louisville. But maybe that, but I probably will save all the booze for celebrating on Saturday, on Sunday rather. Because the big thing also is, and we'll talk, I'm sure talk about this as well, but like, but these two are related. Like, I'm really going to try to make sure my sleep's on point,
Yes.
because I don't want to be broken down, just like, and be carrying a lot of fatigue. So, keeping the nutrition right so that my sleep can be right, I think is a big thing for me. And then staying hydrated. Like I'm gonna make sure that I'm, taking in, drinking a lot of water, making sure I'm getting the electrolytes in, and just kind of doing that going into Saturday, because Saturday will be warm, and so we're gonna sweat a lot, and so I don't want to have any shred of a hint of being dehydrated going into it. And so I think
Let's
those are the other things I'm focused on.
Yeah, and by definition, we have like, when you guys hear him speak, and for me, like we have our baseline diet. So I have my baseline of, okay, during the training block I've been at baseline, probably been on an average day 2,800 to 3,000 calories, 200 grams of protein plus, right? And I say that's baseline because that'll kind of incorporate my hour walk plus, some strength and conditioning. Um, maybe not change it up if I'm doing an hour less like swim or hour less run. But
Yeah.
anytime I get over an hour, then I add to that, right?
Yeah.
So I'll add to that 2,800 to 3,000 calories. I'll consume more. So what I'm going to do is really try to consume more calories this week because traditional fat boy in me is like, okay, you're not training as much, make sure your calories are lower. It's just how it is, especially in the carbohydrate department. Because I've always, even when I did my test the other day, it was kind of neat. I'm a fat burner, right? She was like, you burn more fat than you do carbohydrate. So when they did the resting metabolic test on me, and then even at heart rate zones, I was burning more fat than quote unquote what the books say and what should be happening, which is pretty good and makes sense why a lot of times in these endurance events over the years, like I didn't eat that much,
Mm,
right? So some cool data off
yeah.
that. But
Look at
I'm
you.
like, I'm going to focus on the things I really want to make sure, like, that I'm getting as good a sleep early in the week as possible. And you can kind of see here, that red part happened and basically coming off of the first travel weekend,
Mm,
right? So we talked about that earlier, having the week of 4 days of travel, put me in the red. And then I kind of pulled myself out of it a little bit, started feeling better, but then hit the indoor bike that weekend. I had drill weekend, hit the indoor bike, hit out, the running outside. And then it kind of put me back into the yellow again. And I really struggled in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days. Only had one green in 10 days, but then
yeah.
this morning back into the green. So I'm going to really try to get that 7 to 9 hours of sleep early the week. I'm going to do probably go with two hydration sticks a day.
Hmm.
So I'm going to use First Forms lemon for that one. Go with that twice a day. And then I'm going to do my big carb meal that I traditionally do. I always do the bag. If you remember this from last time we did it, the bag of rice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that microwave bag of rice with dinner on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Because I'm like you, I think Friday I want to try to go a little bit lighter, try to have full glycogen storage before then, not eat late on Friday night, so that
Yep.
you're just feeling rested and all that. And then I'm going to try, and this is a first for me, I'm actually going to do breakfast,
Okay.
which I haven't in the past.
So you've
So
never you've never eaten before the event.
never before an Ironman have I ate because I just don't feel good eating a lot at breakfast. So I
Yeah.
kind of dialed down this little breakfast I have, which is a protein shake with some cinnamon toast crunch. So basically cereal, but with protein shake.
There you go.
And I've got that kind of died down. That I ran, an hour after consuming that, and I felt okay. Didn't have any burping up, any issues. So I think if I have that first thing in the morning, by the time we get into the water, I'll be good to go. So that's going to be a little bit of a change this year as far as how I'm going to do it, from that perspective. So just adding in, some hydration sticks, making sure that I keep my carbohydrate load up, throughout the week. Move the bigger starch-based dinner to Thursday night versus Friday night, and then have some breakfast. Those are things I'm going to do a little bit different for leading up to the event.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably similar to where I'll end up as well, and I feel good around the. I always eat before the event. Nothing super heavy. Cliff Bar with some peanut butter on it. It's funny because people hear the kind of stuff that we eat, especially during, because I'll either do Cliff Bars. Sometimes I'll do like Snickers bars, and they hear about like eating candy and chips and this and that, and they're like, "Oh, well, that sounds pretty good." It's like, yeah, it's just such a different thing when you're eating that stuff during the event because it does not hold the same pleasure that it does when you're eating
Yeah.
M&Ms or a Snickers bar watching a movie as you are, you know, charging down the road on a bike and just trying to shove it in because you need to eat something even though you're not that hungry at the moment. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that's a solid plan, and just like the biggest thing that I want to and knock on wood, I've been successful in all my events so far is just the you don't want that morning to have anything in your system that you're like, uh-oh, like I don't feel good. You know what I mean? And so because you got enough to worry about, your stomach, if you don't want that to be one of them, because then it sort of pushes everything out. So yeah, I think that's the plan. And I've done all my practicing on all my nutrition leading up to it. So there should be, unlike the mistake I made in Louisville, I'm not going to be taking in something that I shouldn't be taking that I have never taken before. I'm not going to do that again. And I've got enough reserves to get me through, I think.
Awesome. What is going to be your plan for? I mean, we both talked about our pre-race nutrition. What's going
Yep.
to be race nutrition? Run us through that.
Yeah, so I'll like I said before, I'll do a Cliff Bar with some peanut butter on it before I leave to go get ready to check in. And then that should be good, and I'll probably keep a gel and have that right before we get in the water, like, literally as we're standing in line, which will just give me a, 100-calorie top off, and then I'll have something coming out of the water, immediately coming out of the water, like, as I'm, like, probably just smash a gel into, or a Cliff Bar or something, like, right as I'm getting ready to get on the bike, and then I'll bring a jersey to just throw on top of my tri kit. It'll all have my stuff stuffed in it, and um, it'll probably be largely Cliff Bars and candy bars that I'll freeze the night before. I'll freeze the chocolate bars the night before, so it's not all melty. But it's going to be Cliff Bars. I like solid food on the bike, so because you're out there for a long time and you get hungry. And so I have found through all of this training that the sweet spot for me is every 20 to 30 minutes, I'm bringing in 125 to 150 calories.
Okay.
And I have found that for me, it works best to have something that is a mix of carbs, but also has a little bit of fat in it and a little bit of protein in it. So Cliff Bars are good in that respect. Snickers bars are good in that respect. They've got carbs and fats, and so I didn't really realize that until I kind of got into it. And then I've got BPN's gels, caffeinated, non-caffeinated. And so what I'll do is I'll eat on the bike in the beginning, and then the last hour or so I'll switch to gels so that my stomach feels less heavy. And then going into the run, it's going to be a combination of gels and then this new thing that Ray told me about that I'll probably pack some of these to put in my pockets for the run. But one thing that I get sick of after a while is we take in so much sugar during the day. So whether it's gels, whether it's Clip Bars, whether it's chocolate, whatever, like there's just so much sugar. And so you reach a point where you're like, I'm so sick of sugar. Like the drinks are sugary, this and that. So crushed up Doritos. So you put them in a little baggie, you crush them into like a powder so that you can basically rip it off and you kind of just you drink it basically. And like it's super easy to take down.
So it'd be almost like eating a bag of corn nuts and having the leftover at the bottom, right?
It's a little bit like that, although
Okay.
the effect that it has on you is a little bit more positive in
Okay.
that respect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it makes it almost like a powder that you can kind of, chew down or swallow down pretty easily. Rinse it down with some water. And I on the run, I'll alternate between something sugary and something salty, because you're getting all the carbs and the fat mix, and one serving of Doritos is, call it 140, 150 calories. So every 2 miles on the run, I'll take in nutrition every mile, because we have an aid station every mile. I'll take in hydration and water. And so that'll be my approach going into the run. And then will hopefully, I'll probably skip the last couple, but other than that, I'll be hitting every single aid station and like taking it a little bit, because if you take in too much in one shot, it just feels gross. So a little bit each time works a lot better for me.
And a couple of things, just teaching points there. The bike is generally a little bit lower intensity because you're off your feet, like it's a non-impact movement to a degree. So a lot of times the heart rate's a little bit lower. So people can eat a little bit more solid foods. Because remember, higher the heart rate, the less you want to try to consume solid foods. Especially at your pace. I mean, it would probably, you could probably eat all day long, on the bike versus me, you know, I've got to have a little bit more liquid, right?
Well, the one of the three events that you have some degree of power on, I mean, all of the things I said about the run don't apply to you either, because I don't even know if you can call it running, and when you're out there on the course, whatever
Run walk.
when you're trotting, which
Yeah.
is something, maybe a shade above walking. Yes, there's no issue of digestion, because nothing's moving around a whole heck of a lot, because the body is not moving that much. So if the body is
100%.
not
So,
moving,
so I am the opposite of what Dennis just said. And this is where, like, all jokes set aside, you have to find what works for you. Okay. So Kevin, my coach, has had me working up to where I'm doing 100 grams of carbohydrate in each bottle that I have. So I'm going 100% liquids on the bike. So using tailwind on the bike, 100 grams of carbs per normal bottle. So I'll have a really big bottle on there, which will probably be 200 grams of carbs.
oh wow,
So yeah, so I'll have 300 grams of carbs, in my bottle for the first half of the race, consuming 100 grams of carbs per hour for the first 3 hours. Then what I'll do is I think I'm just going to replace it with Mortal at that point.
yeah,
So I'm going to have a couple gels just in case in my packet, 100%. Because I won't be able to pre-mix the Mortal. It's going to be mixed because that's what's on course.
right.
So but for the first half of the bike, it's just going to be liquids. Then I might run into some gels and water, depending on how I'm feeling. Once again, what you said, just tired of drinking sugary stuff at that time. They do have Martin gels on course, so that I know that I can lean on that at the aid stations if I need to. So for me, it will be fluids, of course, that has carbohydrate in it, and gels on the bike. That's going to be the goal. I'm also going to do, and this will prolong a little bit me having to consume on the bike too. I'm going to have 100 grams of carbohydrate mixed up in like a 20-ounce bottle at transition. So same thing as you doing a gel. I'm just going to slam that 16 to 20 ounces of water as soon as I get to transition.
Mm-hmm.
Then by the time I get my helmet on, change whatever I need to do, most of the time, I think last year I was 10 minutes, 8 and 10 minutes respectively on the transitions. So if I slam that liquid when I first get in there, it should have time to kind of settle down, and I won't be sloshing, as I go out.
Yeah.
Right? But that also prolongs me not having to eat and drink maybe for that first 30 minutes as I get into the groove on the bike, because I just consumed 20 ounces of water and some calories.
Well, you got to focus, because you got to catch me at that
Yeah,
point.
exactly. Right. Like I gotta go. I'm behind you. I'm behind Katie, probably behind your sister at this point. Right.
100%.
So
Yeah.
I'll be bringing up the rear out of our
Right.
team.
So
So
you're trying to chase down three people, so you got to keep it light so you can hit.
100%. I've got to go. I don't have time to eat on the bike. This is where I've got to go. Okay.
Right. Then set
Um,
yourself a lead, and then you can eat something.
yeah. And then on the bike, once again, I will have that fluid again, carbohydrate mix up that as I'm changing for the run. And then I'm like you on the run. I generally just pick up a little bit of pretzels and Coke at
Mhm.
each aid station. I generally try to wait and get halfway into the run before I start doing the Coke. So I'll stick to um, Mortal, which is the drink that they'll be providing, and add in a little bit of pretzels for that saltiness. So
Yeah.
that is the nutrition game plan for the event. So
Yeah. One side note, I wish I've never seen it since we saw it that one time. Do you remember when they had the chicken broth out there for Maryland?
No, and I just wonder if that was like, was it even there, or were you and I just dreaming that?
That's true. That's a good point. I mean,
Yeah,
we might have been so delirious that we were just making that up. That might not be a real
I
memory.
mean, that could have been like lukewarm water, and that we were just like,
Well, we just imagined it because we were just so delirious,
it
but
was good.
it was really
Katie,
good.
we were talking last night, and she's like, "What happened on your run?" I'm like, "There was no run. There was no trot for Jeremy in that." I was
No.
like, "I walked. I waited for Dennis, and then when he got to me, he was blown up." And I was like, we power walked that with a little bit of some jogging when we couldn't do math." I was like,
And then Power Walk turned into Death March at some
"Oh
point.
yeah." We'll have to. I'll have to do all review on the races. So, all right, let's talk goals. Let's talk about what our goals are, for this, and then kind of what we plan to do afterwards, and
Yeah.
then wrap this one up for the day.
So I think, for both of us, the doubt as to whether or not we can finish, that's taken care of. I don't, so I think it's now about how fast we can go. And I think going into this race, as I look at each event, if I can get out of the water in an hour and 45 ish, I'll feel really good. So far, all the reports that I've seen and the videos I've seen of the water, it looks good. So, barring something unique and out of left field in the weather or a shark getting me, then I should be able to hopefully get out within an hour and 45. Um, and so, as you said, like 10-minute transitions seems like a good goal. Hopefully, we can be less than that. So, hour and 45 on the swim. I'm setting I would love to do the bike at 17 for the average for the 112. And even if I floated down to 16 and a half, that would be okay. But I'd like to be close to 17. I think that's doable based on my rides through training. And then another 10-minute transition. And then I feel really good going into the run. I feel like I'll be able to run. I feel I'll be able to run most of it, if not all of it, and just walk the aid station. So that'll be my little respite is walking because the aid stations are every mile. So I'll walk the aid stations and then get back and my goal pace on the run is between 11 and 12-minute miles. And if I can hold that for 26.2, which I feel honestly cost. I mean, I hate to even say it out loud because I feel like I'm jinxing myself, but I feel really good about it. So I think you add all that up. My goal, and again, the reason why you're hearing hesitancy in my voice, it's almost like I feel good about this goal, but I almost feel nervous saying it. But I think 14 is doable, and if not even a little bit, if I can get a hair less than 14, I'll be thrilled. But even at 14 is more than a 2 hour PR,
Yeah.
and that feels great. I think the big things that would get in my way, uh, would be weather would probably be first and foremost if something happens there. And other than that, if I did something stupid on my nutrition, which I can't imagine I would be at this point because I've done it so many times, but that's kind of my goal is right around 14 hours, if not less. And I'll obviously push it. I'll hold back on my pace on the run until the end. And then once you're within a few miles, then I can just empty the tank. And so I'll hold my energy back because I would rather hold back and do 11 to 12 till I get to, call it 20 to 23 and then empty it then and really finish strong. And so that's my goal. What about you?
I mean, it's kind of the same. Like, the first goal is to finish, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
always is because you never know, right? Like, you
Sure.
could cramp, things could go sideways.
You could miss the cutoff by 11 seconds.
I mean, like, the water seemed to be clearer
Right.
and smoother. So if I'm breaking it down into the swim, I like for the swim and the first transition to be right at 2 hours,
Okay.
because then that's, right there, that's 15 minutes faster than the year before or the
Right.
last time we did this, which should give me a PR, right? If I bike the same and swim, or bike and run the same.
Yeah.
The weather, and this is where I want people to understand this. And this is, I hear people all the time. It's like, well, you did a half. What was your time? Well, someone else did course matter, right?
Big time. Huge.
Courses matter and days matter
Yep.
about weather and what's going on.
Yep.
Transitions matter. Sometimes transitions, you've got to run, walk, jog, Mullins trot, a half mile from the swim to the bike. Right.
Louisville. Yeah.
So there's just you can't. It's apples and oranges when you start comparing. A 70.3 in a different year, different place to one you did. So always keep that in mind when talking with people because I see that all the time. Right? You only can only compare year to year, right? And I mean like the year of that you did the event.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2 hours to get through, transition and the swim, I'd be tremendously happy. Bike, I should be around that 6 hour mark. I think I can hold 18, on the bike. I think that's what I did, last time that we did it. I'm in a little bit, I think I'm in a little bit better biking shape this year,
Hmm.
but once again, it's hard to gain a mile per hour, right?
Right.
Like, um, so right around that 6 hour to 6.5 hours, for the bike, so that should put me at 8.5 hours. And then I have been running, so I am going to do my best, to do that run. I would love to say 5.5 hours, which puts me right under a 13-minute, pace. So that means I'm run walking the entire thing. Um, Last time we did that, I think I got until mile 15 run walking, at that 11 and a half, 12-minute a mile an hour pace. And that's when the wheels fell off.
Yeah.
But even if I go six on the 6 hours on the marathon, that puts me at, once again, 12 and a half for the bike on the top end of the bike. And the 2 hours for the first transition, let's add in another 10 minutes, so that puts me at 12, 14 and at 14:40, which is a PR.
Hmm.
So anything under 15, I'll be happy to break into another hour, because I've been barely finishing the first couple of these 16 and a half hours, and then 5:15 or 15:15 was the fastest time I've gotten. So any PR, and prefer that PR to be in the 14-hour mark, I'll be happy.
Yep.
If things go great, I feel racy, things go well, I think there's a shot that I might crack, 13:50s, and definitely would take that. But that
Yeah.
has to be like everything goes well. I feel great. I'm able to run that marathon in 5 hours. Right. That would have to happen for me to break that time. So
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's the other thing is courses matter and the mother nature doesn't go, oh, it's race day, I better give them the best conditions. Like
right.
as we saw in 2021 in Florida, we had 40-degree temperatures in the morning. And then when the sun went down the run, I bundled up because it was cold. It was it was freezing actually. We won't get that this year, thank goodness. We also had, 20-mile-an-hour headwinds in 2021, and does so far it doesn't look like that's as much of a risk. But
No,
weather matters, but also how you wake up and feel that day matters. I mean, like your brain, your heart, or your body, whatever, doesn't know. Oh, it's well. I mean, maybe psychologically it knows it's race day, but at the end of the day, like you could wake up and something feels weird and whatever, and some of that's in your head, and some of there's so many factors that come into play for the day. We're sitting here laying out our plan, but we're hedging our bets, going like, well, if this happens, because it's really true. Like we're gonna we're gonna have surprises, more than one. It's a long day. There's a
yes.
lot of opportunity for some
Yeah.
stuff
I
to
mean,
come out of left field and go like, hey, here's this thing that you didn't
you
plan
don't know
on.
if you're going to flat. You don't know if you're going to have a mechanical. Like you just don't know these things, and it
Right.
could happen, right? And that's where, like at the end of the day, finishing another one and being able to check that box, that's the ultimate goal,
Yeah.
right? Like, and you can always get frustrated with it, but I do my best to have fun with these,
Right.
right? Because once again, like and I'll say this, like I am going to try to get a little faster at each one that we do over the next 10 years that we continue doing these, or however long we continue doing.
Right.
There'll be a certain point that we just don't get faster because physically
Because we're
we're
old.
at that age that we're not going to get faster, right?
Right.
But yeah, I do have a goal. I think, physically I can do, one of these in sub 13. Like I can, right? Like I think I physically can, with continuing to train, getting a little bit lighter period, and putting everything in at that phase. Now it might be a while when career slows down and kids slow down where you can get a full block of training in. But that is the goal, right? So I don't want people to think that, I don't care about not going sub 15. I do,
Right.
right? But once again, it will not ruin me mentally or physically if I don't, right? Like we'll wake up the next day and we'll have some fun. And that's how we're going to finish this one is, because we still live life. What
Yep.
is Sunday going to look like for us?
Well, I think it will start early because one thing about your sleep after you do one of these, every time I've done an Ironman, my sleep resembles most folks out there, I'm sure will understand what I mean when I say this. It's like when you go to bed and you have a fever and you're kind of like cold sweats and your body's kind of just messed up because you're sick. It kind of feels like that when you're sleeping. So you don't get the best, despite how tired you are, you don't get the best sleep the night after an Ironman. Your heart rate's all over the place, etc. So we're gonna be up early. And using last time we were together in Florida for an indication here, we were up in the 6 o'clock hour, and I believe the Prosecco was open in the 6 o'clock hour, and the mimosas were flowing in the 6 o'clock hour. And I expect more of the same. Jeremy's accommodations are zero 0.3 miles away from mine. And so I think rendezvous early in the morning to start the festivities because you're gonna I foresee a version of the day looking like, start the day, enjoy some mimosas, some adult beverages, a bunch of food. Midday will come around, we'll probably be a little sleepy.
Yeah.
And so I could see a doze
Well,
off, a nappy coming in
yeah.
the middle of the day. And then I
Well,
think
we have to. Not our
right,
fault. The
right,
baby's going to be with me, so
of course.
she's going to go down around 12, right? So we'll go down with her.
There you go.
We'll
There you
take a
go.
nap midday, and then we'll continue on with the enjoying some frosty beverages. Actually, we'll probably move from the mimosa and light drinks to we'll crack open a bottle of Blanton's in the evening
Yep.
time. Do our
Yep.
tradition of having some Blanton's after a post big event,
Indeed.
and then we'll probably still go to bed early.
We will 100%. It will not be a late night. I do not foresee us once we find a comfortable place to sit on that day. We will probably not be moving a whole heck of a lot. There will be no dancing involved. There will be no moving around. It will be making a big dent in a chair and kind of just chilling for the day. But really looking forward to uh, celebrating, and then we will swap stories because inevitably there will be a whole bunch of them from all of us that are racing.
That
Because
you don't, yeah, that you don't know about until you actually have the chance to like
that's right,
have
that's
those
right,
conversations, right? It's just so funny because then it's like there's moments where I could be doing great and you might be going through like frustration, right? But I was telling Katie, and she's on board for this. I think there might be a really good chance that all three of us are close together. And if that happens in the last 6 to 8 miles, like I told her, I was like, if it happens, we're all going to be close. And we're all, me and your PR, and she probably won't PR because she hasn't put the mileage in running.
right,
So it's more her being slower than anything.
right. Than us being faster, right?
Correct. Like
Yeah,
me and you're a little faster. She's going
yeah.
to be slower. But she's like, yeah, if we're together that late, like we all should just go in together. And I'm like,
That'd be
I
cool.
like that. So that's kind of
That would
my
be cool.
other last thing I'll end this with, and is a goal if it happens, right? Like I don't want you waiting on me.
Sure.
We're not going to sit and wait. That type of stuff. But if there's a chance and we're all close within that last 3 to 6 miles, man, I'd love to like run down the red carpet together and finish that last little bit hand in hand.
Man, I think that'd be awesome. I mean the punctuation mark I'd put, or the exclamation point I'd put at the end of that is you know, I can't see a time where I'm doing these events without my homies. And so like I wouldn't say half, more than half the reason you do this is you do it with this in my view, like doing hard stuff with your friends is it makes it so much better. I know plenty of people like to do this stuff on their own and they challenge themselves and that's fine, but every one of these big, whether it's a half Ironman or full Ironman, I've done them all. I've done all of them with you and you, me, and then whoever else happens to be
Yeah.
there for
Yeah.
that event. And so like I don't see that changing, and that's that's a big part of the fun and the allure for me is a chance to do something that's challenging for me personally, but also, doing it alongside your
Well,
hobby. So,
and with that being said, the ball is in your court. Since this one was a deferral that I had and had to use it up,
yeah,
the ball is in your court for 2026. I would ask that you stay away from August because I'm gonna try to get my happy ass back out to Leadville and finish Leadville, 100 that year. But other than that, man, you pick the date, you pick the place in 2026, and I'll be there.
roger that.
Awesome, man. Appreciate your time. I will see you
Uh,
Friday.
well,
Yeah,
you're coming in town Friday, so I'll see you Friday
Friday morning.
because
Yep.
I'm flying. Me and the whole clan are flying down Wednesday, so we'll be there waiting for you.
Awesome. Have a good one, brother.
All right, man.